Let's break down block number 7, team. We got the 1-6 method. We're going to use a different strategy than we normally do on 1-6. We're going to use a potentiation by either adding accommodating resistance or changing the range of motion, which we'll break down. And then strength, we use a back offset protocol, meaning that we're going to do a certain rep scheme. We're going to increase the reps, lower the weight to get a little bit more hypertrophy or muscular endurance. Our first workout with team is going to be back squat 1-6 method. So you can see here I have chains attached to the bar. Before we go over how that's going to accentuate whatever it is we're going to try to get from that 6, we want to break down the logistics of chains. So chains, it's not supposed to be unstable, right? So if we raise this up and those dangle, you'll see them swinging. That is a problem in terms of force, right? Shooting a cannon from a canoe is not a good strategy for either peak force or velocity or a combination in both, which is power. If I'm looking to accentuate that movement, I want to really focus on 1, being stable, strong, stout, but then 2 is maximal expression. And I don't want to worry about horizontal displacement of those chains swaying back and forth. So the first setup wise, is you want to make sure that chain attachment has at least all the chains or the top part of the chain on the ground. Now there's a carryover here where if we think about it from if those chains are all the way on the ground, that means we're deloaded the whole entire time. So there's going to be a fine line between how many links of chains we want on the ground versus completely suspended in the air and swaying back and forth. Ideally, we have that first link touch to the ground and we can just simply change the height here by moving this up or down. And then this way we have as many chains descending down into the ground and then leaving the ground without instability. And that's an important part because what we're going to do is use this for our single. So we'll go 1, 6, 1, 6, 1, 6. So 6 total sets, alternating between 1 and 6 reps. On our single, we're going to use accommodating resistance. And what this does is allow us to accelerate. So as I'm coming out of the bottom of a squat, naturally I decelerate because that bar will fly off my shoulders. So what accommodating resistance allows for is what they call compensatory acceleration, that I'm not naturally slowing down to accommodate that bar accelerating off my shoulder or keeping momentum going. Right, so it increases the load with every chain leaving the ground, increasing the concentric demand over the overcoming. And that what that does is when it carries over, I take the chains off, I increase the reps, my body and my pattern is more ingrained to accelerate through that strength curve. When we hit that point of fatigue, what will happen is that momentum that I create from this bottom position through that sticking point now is completely overridden because I'm more accustomed to increasing load concentrically, and then I drive through that sticking point, hopefully getting more from that actual set of 6. So every single, it's maximal effort. It's thinking drive as hard as you can upwards out of the hole. So when we go to those 6s, it's more ingrained, it's more hardwired. You'll see the tempo is XOXO. So that means that I'm going down fast, up fast. We want to be locked in with our elbow position, locked in with our chin position, locked in with that bar on our back. We're thinking we are as stable as we possibly can. So we look like a piston, feet are locked in, boom, drive up and down, accelerate through. When we go to the 6s, no different, same setup, same position, same range of motion, same drive. That is going to be the central theme of all of these workouts today. For our second workout, we're going to do a change your range of motion. So instead of increasing by compensatory acceleration, which really doesn't apply to pulling exercises where I initiate with a concentric action. So a squat starts with an eccentric action, a pull-up or a deadlift starts with a concentric action. Either I'm pulling from a dead stop up there or I'm pulling upwards. So a better strategy is alternating a change in range of motion. So we'll keep that same rep scheme, 1-6, 1-6, 1-6. The only difference is in order to increase potentiation, we're gonna add range of motion. So for practice 2, we'll do a sternum pull-up for our singles, sternum pull-up 1, and then we'll go to a normal neutral grip pull-up for our 6s. So in terms of sternum pull-up, same grip, we're thinking about this neutral grip. Only difference is I pull all the way to the bottom of my sternum here, and then I let myself, then I keep the same weight, whatever I hit for my sternum single, Then I'm going to use that same weight towards my either 6 or my 3. So if you can do 3 or more, you want to fight like hell to do those 6s. If you can't do 3, if you're doing 3 or less, you're going to keep the same weight that you hit for your sternum just with your 3s. And that's a strategy we'll use for more pulling exercises as opposed to those pushing exercises. Practice 3, our primary movement is going to be a trap bar deadlift, which is a pulling exercise. We initiate with a concentric action. So we're going to use a range of motion strategy instead of a accommodating resistance. So when we're setting up for a trap bar deadlift, you'll see 2 different handles. One, which is slightly elevated. That means it's actually elevated from the actual trap bar. And if you flip it over, you'll see one that's parallel or flat with the height of the trap bar. And what we're going to do with that is use that as a strategy to change the height. So in terms of we're loading it, we're going to think low handle for our 1 and then high handle for our 6. So when we set up wise, a kabuki bar will have the ability to flip it back and forth. For me, I just adjust the height here to a low handle position. This is what I'll do for my 1s. So I'll set up here like such. Pull. For the kabuki trap bar, what we'll do is flip and then we'll face it the other way. For me, for the sake of example here, I'm going to pull up all the way here. And then now for my 6s, I'll use the same weight just from a higher position. So the setup wise is just flipping it up, facing the other way. Practice 4, we're going to utilize that 1-6 method again. Pushing exercise, bench, we're going to use accommodating resistance. Now the other element of this is going to use fat grips. So there's going to be a huge amount of central nervous system influence. That tempo of XOXO tempo, coming down with a little bit of speed, driving up with a little bit of speed, is hopefully going to get better and better as we go. The other part is utilizing a bar speed of 0.5 to 0.75 meters per second. That's a little bit more power, right? That idea of, hey, I want to utilize a little bit more external load, but driving it up as fast as humanly possible. So this nice little in between in terms of it's not super light and extremely fast. It's not super heavy and extremely slow. It's right in that middle, hopefully moving this force velocity parabolic curve up and to the right. Now, in regards to setup wise, again, 1 link in contact of the ground. So as I lift that bar out, it's not swaying because that's going to diminish power. So as I set up wise, adjusting the height of the chain so that 1 link's always in contact with the ground, so I'm not dissipating or removing my ability to produce a lot of force fast. Now, I know this goes without saying, but just saying it again. 5 points of contact: head, shoulders, butt, both feet, power, right? We're thinking setup wise, I want to express force as violently off my chest as much as humanly possible. Get the bar out. From here, that bar goes down a little quicker. And then driving up. You know a good rep when that chain sounds fast. You'll see bar speed as a proxy to really assessing that, but more importantly, you really want to lock in and move that bar as quickly and as aggressively as humanly possible. When we go to our 6s, just take chains off and then still try to move that bar as fast as humanly possible, relatively speaking, to what we did it with the chains. For strength, we're going to work a back off set. So we're going to do 4 sets of 8 at a moderate to heavier weight. Then we're going to do our 5th set at 1 set of 12. Practice 1, we're going to do a rear foot elevated split squat using a roller pad. So setup wise, we want to keep our torso vertical. We want to touch our back knees out onto the ground without a pad. This is an important distinction because as we get into these higher reps, 8s or even 12s, you'll find that that height or that range of motion can become variable based off fatigue. So having that end point and not using momentum at the bottom is going to be critical to getting the full benefit since you're just having a standard of movement. So we'll do 8 each side for the first 4 sets. We'll choose a lighter weight and then we'll do 12 each side for our 5th set. For practice 2, we're going to do a bent over row with that same 4 sets of 8 with 1 back off set of 12. Now in terms of setup wise, we want to grab onto our dumbbells, stand all the way upright. Then we get into a good deep hinge. So as I pull, now I'm in this hinge position, keeping my body as parallel or somewhat even below parallel to the ground. And what that's going to do is, again, give me that standard of movement, That's going to allow for the development of the muscle group or the pattern I'm trying to develop. So setup wise, feet hip width apart, knees slightly bent, push your butt and hips back. And then from here, we pull our elbows all the way to the sky, down under control. 8 reps for our first 4 sets. And then to that 12th. Now, when we get to that 5th set of 12, you're going to find that position is going to be really challenged from a low back strength, from a hip, hamstring strength, as well as with your lat strength. And what I would encourage you to do is give yourself some sort of internal cue. So as I pull, I'm almost pushing my chest down and keeping my knees back to get that movement accomplished and not distributing that for our practice 3, we're going to do a single leg RDL holding on to 2 dumbbells. So just like normal, coming down, loading up either side of that leg. Now what I want to do is show a side angle here because I think this is important. So good hinge, right? The shins vertical or up and down. My butt goes slightly back, weight goes down to the heel, that long torso position. The other part though is how we counterbalance or center ourselves with heavier external load with 2 dumbbells. You can probably get away with 1 dumbbell doing this knee bent position. With more external load, you're gonna have to elicit a strategy that creates more stability, and that comes into a greater weight going backwards or more of a counterbalance. So setup wise, you wanna think, I am long and strong on that back leg, keeping everything in line all the way up and down. Now, this will become more and more important when we get to that 5th set of 12. Again, it's gonna go 8, 8, 8, 8, so 4 sets of 8, and then 1 set of 12 each side. And that's gonna become challenging. So setup wise, long and strong, counterbalancing that load, because as fatigue creeps up, technique is the first thing to suffer.